Annyeonghaseyo, which means hello in Korean. Learning is so fun and its ways can be so unique when it comes to things like BTS, K-pop, Korean wave, and webtoons, which seems quite interesting to know that its origin is from the country of South Korea, the official name of which is Tianminguk, a country in East Asia. Hanguk is the name that South Koreans refer to while talking about their country. Let's learn about the hub of pop and advancement, with respect to all that the country is about, that is, South Korea, which has almost anything and everything to offer to be self-sufficient in the all best possible ways. The country's population is around 51 million, out of which almost around half of the country's population live in the capital city, Seoul. With $1.6 trillion as its GDP, South Korea ranks as the world's 10th largest by nominal GDP, which also is a highly developed country, and is said to be ranked third as a developed country in Human Development Index in Asia. Along with this, it is also the 5th largest exporter and 8th largest importer in the world. In September 2020, South Korea exported $48 billion and imported $39.3 billion, resulting in a positive trade balance of $8.7 billion. Between September 2019 and September 2020, the exports of South Korea have increased by $3.41 billion, which amounts to 7.64% from $44.6 billion to $48 billion, while imports increased by $607 million, that is, 1.57% from $38.7 billion to $39.3 billion. In September 2020, the top exports of South Korea were electrical machinery and equipment, and parts worth $15.2 billion. Nuclear reactors, boilers, machinery and mechanical for $6.06 billion, vehicles, other than railway or tramway, worth $5.53 billion, plastics and articles thereof $2.94 billion, and mineral fuels, mineral oils and products for $2.07 billion. In September 2020, the top imports of South Korea were electrical machinery and equipment and parts for $8.01 billion, mineral fuels, mineral oils and products for $6.59 billion, nuclear reactors, boilers, machinery and mechanical, worth $4.59 billion, vehicles, other than railway or tramway, for $1.65 billion, and optical, photographic, cinematographic, measuring, checking, medical, worth $1.63 billion. Geographically, we can divide South Korea into 4 parts, which consists of the East Sea or Sea of Japan on its east, the East China Sea to the south, and the Yellow Sea to its west. The southeast is a bit separated by the Korea Strait from the Japanese island, Tsushima. The country occupies an area of around 1,100 kilometers, occupying the southern portion of the Korean peninsula. Talking about the climate in the Republic of Korea, it can be said to be cold and dry during winters, while hot and humid in summers. According to a report by Korean Meteorological Administration, August is considered to be the warmest month in South Korea, with a maximum temperature of 40 Celsius or 104.0 Fahrenheit in 1942, and the latest by then 40.7 Celsius or 105.7 Fahrenheit. Temperature was at one time considered to be a devastating natural disaster when previously, South Korea reported a heat wave in the year of 2018 which took the lives of 29 people, with the temperature rising above 35 Celsius or 95 Fahrenheit. You might be intrigued to know that South Korea is the Earth's busiest air route. It has the most crowded flight path, with more than around 26 million passengers using the Jeju airport every year. Seoul, which also is the hub of tourism, as we can see, making it the 4th largest earner in tourism, and the 9th most visited city in the last few years. Earlier, for 35 years, Seoul was under the control of Japanese colonial rule, and then finally Korea got released from the Japanese in 1945. Although, during the Korean War in 1950, the country was left devastated, but finally, as a result of it ending in 1953, Seoul became the main capital. Talking about the political structure, the capital city is divided into 25 administrative parts called gu, where each gu has its government, with several neighborhoods that are called dong. And finally, coming to the climate, Seoul has a considerably humid subtropical and humid continental climate, which is quite similar to the country's climate itself. You might not know the fact that the Dongdaemun market in Seoul is considered to be the fashion hub, including the largest wholesale and retailing businesses, and best of all is that most of the shops here give a 24/7 service. Shopaholics can never be tired of such a place. It definitely can be the guilty pleasure for a lot of people out there after a visit or two, right? While talking about the lavishing developments in the country, we must dive into the historical background that backs the country, which is right now. The history of the country is marked by the discovery of Joseon in 2333 BCE by Dangun, having a mythological back in order with its discovery, and later on the province was divided into three major states, namely Kukkuyu, Baekje, and lastly Silla. While we are at the point of mythology, let's just have a look at a few more important details on the same. The original combined form of Korean religion is Eurasian shamanism, along with the totemism of the Far East Asia. While at the same time, the oldest records that show an account of the existence of the three male kingdoms of Korea compiled during or after the 12th century, are transcribed in classical Chinese in Korean texts. Some of the texts are Samgyusa, Samgsagi, and Yuang-ongi. This period is known as Proto Three Kingdoms of Korea, and this was a little bit about the ancient history of Korea. Now, let's have a look at what the modern history consists of. The Republic was enunciated in the year 1948. What led to the Korean War was the invasion of South Korea by North Korea in 1950, which was then backed down by the Soviet Union and Chinese troops, and ultimately led the war to end by 1953 with approximately 3 million people dying for the cause. The then President Syngman Rhee was first elected by the National Assembly in 1948, but after South Korea's adoption of a national security law, which prohibited the groups who opposed the support of North Korea due to all that was happening at that time. But after this, Rhee came to power once again, and he succeeded in forcing National Assembly. After Rhee's 3 successful terms, the power shifted to the office of the then Prime Minister, Chang Myon. After these successful days under the National Assembly, 1961 proved to be a turning point in the history of South Korea as military rule got established backing down the National Assembly, led by General Park Chung-hee, which extended up to 4 years. Park Chung-hee later became the president and remained in power till 1987. Soon in 1991, an invitation was sent to South Korea for becoming a part of the United Nations. The election of the 8th Prime Minister of South Korea, Kim Dae-jung, marked the transition of the country from autocracy to modern democracy from 1997 to 1998. A few years later in 2010, South Korea once again witnessed the indulgence of North Korea through attacks majorly near the Korean Demilitarized Zone, DMZ, or the Northern Limit Line, NLL. Finally in 2012, South Korea had its first ever female president, Park Geun-hye, but her way of carrying out the politics in office was a bit more inclined towards a conservative prospect, which eventually led to massive public demonstrations and protests, giving way to her removal from the office in the year 2016. In the elections of 2017, Moon Jae-in won from the Democratic Party, and so far his government has been putting in efforts to improve their relations with North Korea. South Korea is believed to maintain political relations with around 191 countries like China, Japan, Mongolia, and many others. Let's discuss more about it in detail. Talking about the inter-Korean relations first, there has been no peace treaty signed up with North Korea, but at the same time there was an inter-Korea summit in the year 2000, which paved way for the Sunshine Policy of engagement. And do you know what makes it more interesting? The country's largest trading partner is China, with approximately 25.1% of South Korean exports involved with them, worth $136.2 billion. Also, South Korea has signed up a few free trade agreements with some of these countries, including Chile, India, US, and a few more. Did you know? 14 out of Fortune Global 500 companies' headquarters are situated in the capital, officially known as the Seoul Special Metropolitan City, 50 kilometers from the border with North Korea, situated in northwest South Korea on the Han River, which earlier was used as the trade route to China. Seoul, being a perfectly developed city, contains 5 UNESCO World Heritage Sites including Changdeok Palace, Hwasong Fortress, Jongmyo Shrine, Namhansanseong, and the royal tombs of the Joseon dynasty. If we take a look at tourism in South Korea, we will get to know that tourist places in the country are phenomenally exquisite, ranging from historical monuments built around 5,000 years back to the current figures of attraction, like the Lotte World, which is also known as the Magic Island, Seoul Tower, which is the second highest point of Seoul, Gyeongbokguk Palace, and many more. Jeju-do, an island in South Korea, has been named among the new 7 Wonders of Nature in 2012. With this, it also has around 12 World Heritage Sites, comprising national treasures like royal palaces, tombs, shrines, and many more. Talking about wildlife, South Korea has a rich diversity comprising of 8,271 species of plants, 18,117 animals, and around 3,528 other species, making a total of around 30,000 species in all, which still is anticipated 100,000 in total. Coming to endangered wildlife species, we must know that leopard cat, red-crowned crane, golden eagle, Asian black bear, Hodgson's bat, Siberian musk deer, and the Mongolian wolf are all endangered wild animals of South Korea. Siberian tiger is the national animal of South Korea, while oriental magpie is the national bird of the same. As we see, South Korea is such a heavenly place for tourists to visit. The festivals that the Republic of Korea celebrate are as well very prestigious and beautifully celebrated. Yawido Spring Flower Festival, a festival that occurs in a great place, with cherry blossoms all around, with visitors to peacefully enjoy the beauty of the place with performances and exhibitions in coordination. Seoul Lantern Festival, where millions of visitors descend on Seoul's Cheonggyecheon Plaza to experience the beauty of the lanterns, all the way illuminating the plaza with some specific elements of the Korean culture. The national sport of the country is Taekwondo, but South Koreans also enjoy baseball and football a lot. In fact, kite flying is also considered a sport in many parts of East Asia. South Korea last hosted the 2018 Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang for the first time since Lillehammer in 1994. It has been quite a long session and much about history lately. Must be hungry, right? So why not have a look at the different enticing delicacies which are famous in Korea? A few of the famous delicacies are Bulgogi, which is a dish of marinated slices of beef with sautéed vegetables and enticing flavors from different sources, making it utterly scrumptious. Samgyeopsal, which is their staple diet. Kimchi, which has a part of the Korean cuisine for more than 2,000 years back, making its way from then, the Shilla dynasty, with around more than 200 variations available at present. Tofu stew, and instant noodles for sure, which are the easiest to prepare. In fact, you will be shocked to know that Koreans do not like the Western desserts, like cakes, puddings, etc. Rather, they have a strong liking towards traditional, homemade desserts, or fresh fruits. Another such amazing fact about South Korea is that earlier, during the Three Kingdoms period, there was a time when value of rice was so high that it started off as a means of currency within the people of South Korea. Finally, considering the factors discussed above, the future plans of the country seems to be becoming self-sufficient in all aspects by making other areas of technology, pop and culture, industry and everything else at the same time into a perfectly developed condition, making it more and an even stronger competition in the world market. Some of the important future goals for which they are working currently is the development of 3 hydrogen-powered cities by 2022, and if successful, this will make them win the race of making the first hydrogen-powered society, which will be a tremendous achievement for the nation. Another one is the development of East Busan Tourism Complex, also known as the Syria Tourism Complex, and finally, the most awaited development which a lot of us might be expecting from the county being a K-pop fan, will be the establishment of the K-pop arena in Seoul, which is believed to be completed by the year 2023, and will open for tourists in 2024. So, this was all about South Korea. Do like, share and subscribe to our channel Explified.